Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Contracts and Disclosures. My name is Dan Frigerio with the JRP Group. At some point, you've listed the piece of property. It's gone to MLS. You've received a purchase contract on it. You're now opening, you're into escrow, and at some point, there may be some inspections done on the property, and you're going to be contacted from the buying agent to talk to you about possibly doing some requests for repairs, or as the CAR form is designated, it is Form RR. So a little bit about the request for repairs itself. The request for repairs form is used in conjunction with the residential purchase agreement to document a buyer's request that the seller makes repairs to the property before the close of escrow, give the buyer a credit, or reduce the purchase price to accommodate the fact that the buyer may incur expenses immediately upon taking title to the property. While having work done before the close of escrow is appealing to many buyers, some buyers prefer a credit or a purchase price reduction, either because they want to have their own choosing contractors or repair people to perform the work, or because the buyer was already planning on altering the property and the problem area is within the space the buyer intends to improve. So it would make sense to have the work completed only to the buyer's change that part of the property anyway. So it's whether for just stated reasons or something else, the decision on a repair request is for the buyers to make. So what we have is we have the date prepared and we have the agreement. Let's say it's the purchase agreement on a property known as 1500 Elm Street between the two parties. And then what we're going to do is the buyer is going to request and check everything that apply. The buyer requests that the seller, prior to a final verification of condition, repair or take the other specified action for the following. So in paragraph 1A, this provides for the buyer to specify what repairs that they would like the seller to make. Since having the property treated for problems associated with wood-destroying pests and organisms is often a requested term, paragraph 1B provides for the buyer to make the request for the pest control work to be made by the seller and has specific language to address how any such work will be accomplished. For example, the request can cover active infestation only, which is Section 1 conditions, or conditions likely to lead to active infestation, which would be Section 2, or both. In any case, if this request is agreed to, the seller shall deliver to buyer a certification from a registered structural pest control company attesting to the completion of the work. Whenever the request is made for problems associated with wood-destroying pests and organisms, the request must be based upon the findings of a specific report issued by a registered structural pest control company. So we'll go back over here to sections 1A and section 1B. So let's say, for example, today is October 2nd. Let's say the contract and the inspection was done on September 30th. You'd put the date in and whatever the company was prepared by. And if you're asking for section 1 or for section 2 items, or item number C, it says the buyer is requesting that the seller credit the buyer so much money at the close of escrow. While having work done before the close of escrow, under the seller's response, the seller can respond in one of three ways. They agree to all of the buyer's requests, they can reject all of the buyer's requests, or to issue a list of things that the seller will agree to do. That list response should be documented by using the seller response and buyer reply to request repair. And that's a form RRRR, which we'll be going over in a little bit. If the seller agrees to the buyer's request, the buyer must agree to at least remove the physical inspection contingency before the seller's agreement will take effect. The seller can, as part of their agreement to buyer request, require that the buyer remove other contingencies indicated on the attached CAR form contingency removal, in addition to the physical inspection contingency. So at this point, the seller's response is, the seller might say, okay, we agree to the buyer's request provided in writing. The buyer needs to remove their physical inspection. And then also we're going to maybe ask, the buyer removes those contingencies identified in the CR, which we just talked about, the contingency removal. These are the options. The buyer does not agree to any of the buyer's requests, or the seller can basically do a counter offer where they're going to attach the form RRRR. If, however, at the bottom, if the seller agrees to all of the buyer's requests, the buyer hereby removes the physical inspection contingencies and those identified on the attached contingency removal form signed by the buyer and agrees to the above release. So when you are in escrow or at some point you're presented with a request for repairs, take a close look at this, see what your options are as far as the pest inspection, a roof inspection, or any other requests that they are making of your buyers. So I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.